Many people understand the differences among racial groups. What people don't generally understand is that there are differences within the way in which individuals are treated within racial groups based upon skin color. A person with Beyonce's skin tone may be preferred over someone who has the skin tone of an India RE, who has a darker skin tone. This happens not only within the African American community, it happens within the Latinx community, as well as within the Asian American community. It's important to keep in mind that colorism, skin tone discrimination, is not only practiced by individuals of color, it's also practiced by white individuals. It's really difficult to think of African American pop figures who are, in fact, of a darker skin tone, right? So we can think of Beyonce, Cardi B, Alicia Keys, these women who are wonderfully talented, but it's hard to come up with similar equivalents. And the question becomes why? Why is it so hard to identify pop figures who are of a darker skin tone? And that shows that there's an intersectional dimension between skin color, right, and gender. Right? The darker you are, the less desirable you are viewed as being in U.S. society in terms of your sexuality, your accessibility, your desirability. When I started studying skin color many years ago, I was aware of skin tone differences and their salience within the African American community. What I was unaware of was the global dimension of colorism. And I became aware of the fact that color has significance within Asian and Asian American communities when I started traveling in Asia. Skin color has meaning in terms of socioeconomic class. The darker you are, the more likely you are to be marked as a person who labors or toils in the field. The other answer I received, and that's substantiated in the literature, is that skin color in Asian and Asian American communities is also a marker of beauty. What is happening is that Asian women want to be deemed as beautiful, as do all women, and because lightness is prized, they are engaging in practices to prevent their skin from being perceived as too dark. And some of these practices involve the use of skin brightening, is a euphemistic term, or skin whitening products. And indeed, the skin whitening business has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, with Asia being the primary market. In 2010, this market was estimated to be approximately $10 billion, and we estimate that it may be about $23 billion in 2020.
Now, a closer look at a struggle many Americans face, the bias of skin tone. It's called colorism, and it's an eye-opening topic, and covering it was championed by a member of our GMA team we recently lost, producer Daisha Riley.
Yeah, this is such an important story, and Daisha felt that it was really important to shine a light on this problem that is so recognized in communities of color, but rarely discussed publicly. Deborah Roberts is here with more on this story. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning, Cecilia and Michael. And I have to say that I am humbled and honored to bring forth one of the last pieces that Daisha produced for us. Once again, a provocative issue, many that I've had an opportunity to explore with her over the years. And this one shining a light on bias around skin tones, not among different ethnic groups, but within the same communities of color. Some call it light privilege.
She's pretty for a dark-skinned girl.
Their parents will call me negro, which means black in Spanish.
It's been an open secret for generations.
There's this fetishization of light skin.
It was always black or white. You know, don't get too black.
Colorism, prejudice based on skin tone, and a preference for light skin over dark. The unfortunate phenomenon spread across all groups of color.
Within Asian Americans, this model minority mindset to distance yourself from other people of color by positing yourself as the most hardworking and law-abiding minority in this country, in a way, in order to kind of gain favor with white people.
Dr. Joy DeGruy, who studies racial trauma, says colorism is rooted in proximity to whiteness.
The whole notion that white is the best, the correct, the most intelligent, the most right about everything. And as you move along the color spectrum, the darker you are, the less important, beautiful, viable, capable, all of those things that the society has imposed upon us based on that notion of supremacy.
Its impact woven into American society and can affect every aspect of life. Take a look at the differences in wages for a dark-skinned African American, a brown-skinned, and a light-skinned African American. The study showing hourly wages among blacks literally rising as skin tone lightens. Lighter-skinned minorities viewed as more intelligent by employers, even with identical education as their darker-skinned counterparts. Experts say these examples of colorism have long-lasting effects of both mental and physical trauma.
The anti-Blackness started with this whole idea that the darker you are, the less human you are. And so everyone's distancing themselves from that. I think multi-generational trauma is evident.
I hated the way I looked. I just wanted to like scratch the dark skin out of my face.
One time I was in the bathtub and I wanted to stay in longer so my skin color could get lighter. I just thought that's how it worked.
Anti-colorism organizations like the Beauty Well Project in Minnesota work to end the stigma against darker-skinned people of all races who face discrimination from society as well as their own communities.
I know I was not alone. I know I'm not the only dark-skinned girl that has been bullied. So we need more dark-skinned girls and boys just to speak out.
Colorism sparking a lot of conversations lately, even highlighted in a best-selling novel, The Vanishing Half. Here are some statistics that Daisha was able to uncover. Darker-skinned girls 3 times more likely to be suspended from school. Darker-skinned drivers more likely to be even arrested or pulled over. A big problem that we obviously need to do a lot of work on. Cecilia?
It is, Deb. Thank you. And we're going to start right now by talking about it. That's the first step. So let's bring in Amira Adway from the Beauty Well Project in Minnesota, an organization that empowers people to embrace their identity and culture. Amira, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here to talk about, as we say, this really important topic. This is something that exists for Latinos. This is something that exists for Asian Americans, African Americans, so many groups of color. What can we do to combat this?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Colorism is so much embedded in cultures. It's something that started with colonizations, those countries that experienced colonizations, and also communities that have experienced slavery. And so it's deeply rooted in cultures. We have to teach people their identities. We have to teach people their history. We need to redefine beauty standards because that is a huge issue that impacts these communities. We need to empower and uplift communities of color.
No doubt. And Amira, how can people of color overcome their own insecurities and biases?
Yeah, this is so much trauma. I mean, this has been going on for years and years and years. So people are dealing with so much trauma, so much pain, and so they need safe space. We have to create safe space for them. We have to listen to them. A lot of times people don't disclose what they're experiencing unless they have safe space. So we have to create these safe spaces for them. We have to empower very early on. We have to start empowering young girls. That's why it's so important to have mentoring programs. Young people have to see representations in all fields. For example, journalism. They have to see people of color in all of these places that really represent them. That representation, it's so empowering, and that helps with their mentoring, and that helps them see that they can do whatever they want to do.
That's why we say representation matters so much. So let's talk
I identify as a dark-skinned brother.
I would say I am light-skinned. Back home I would be called red bone, but I don't like that term.
Yeah.
So, light skin.
How would you describe childhood with your skin color?
Early childhood was rough. I'd say, being picked on for being called black. I mean, being picked on, being called black, midnight, almost any and everything you can think of. But yeah, the older I got, the cooler it became. So
I had a hard time. I got picked on a lot because of my skin color. Called names such as white girl, again red bone, and some of the darker skinned kids didn't want to play with me. I had a lot of Caucasian friends, but I also had black, darker skinned friends as well, but just not as many.
Yeah, I beat somebody up because he was calling me black, and I let it go. Long story short, let it go on for a while, and finally put my foot down, or my fist down rather, and yeah, that was that. And they tried to say I was wrong, but of course, like, my mom had my back, and she was like, nah, like, this been going on for a long time, so he had it coming. And come to find out, his daddy was just as black as me. So everybody was looking at him kind of crazy once we was in the principal's office.
We didn't talk about, colorism as a family because they were older parents, and that never came up. And so I didn't learn about colorism until now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we discussed colorism without, like, knowing that we discussed colorism. Like, I didn't know what colorism was, but my mom would, like, just tell me, like, it's okay to be, like, black, like, you're a strong black man, My dad would tell me, like, son, it's all right, one day you're gonna realize, and I was like, all right, Pa, and that day came literally, and the tables flipped for me, So yeah.
We talked a little bit about your childhood. What role do you believe your skin color or the issue of colorism played in your dating and or marriage? So it's going to be past tense or current.
I feel like earlier on, it may have affected it because I let it affect, you know what I mean? Like, in trying to, like, date and overthinking stuff and whatever. But as I became confident in myself, that's when I kind of was like, oh, nah, this is the win. And yeah. And as far as, like, I guess in my life now, like with my wife, yeah, like, she light bright, so people look at her differently. I don't care what nobody say.
My go-to was always black, so I didn't go outside of my race to want to date anyone else. And I like darker skinned men, so
yeah.
I didn't see a problem with that.
I remember, like, people joking about, like, the light skin versus dark skin thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, light skin brothers, y'all out of here, this and this. And I don't know. I don't know where that started. I don't know how I got there. Some people take colorism back to slavery. Some people take it, and I think that definitely has an effect on it. I think a lot of it comes from that, probably. But, I think a lot of it comes from, like you say, like, what the world wants us to see. And I think that's with colorism, but it's also with everything. You know what I mean?
How do you feel about the stereotype that people of lighter skin color are the ones that quote unquote benefit from colorism?
I can say to that too that, yeah, I think that I have advanced at work early in my career because of my skin color. Now, not so much because the majority of my management are African Americans. But early on in my career, I had a Caucasian boss, and he took me under his wings, and it was like I was his child, because he took care of me as far as, you know, making sure that I got what I needed at work. And I feel that, yes, it was because of my skin color. Now, I am a nice person too, so I treat everybody with respect. So let's hope that that's what it was instead of my skin color.
Because I think that darker skinned people are typically looked at as being more dominant, like being more aggressive, you know what I'm saying? And that's not to say that I try to play into the, you know what I'm saying, the biases or the colorism. But I notice it. I'm not going to sit here and act like, you know what I'm saying? It don't happen, because it does. Yeah. You know, like if a light-skinned man, black man walk by a white lady, and I walk by a white lady, she's probably going to clench her purse if I walk by, versus the light-skinned brother. I've seen it happen. You know, or even a white man, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
In Belts one day, Aaron and I, and a lady, the worker at Belts, started following Aaron and I around in the store. We were in the Coach or Michael Kors section, and she just kept following us like I was gonna steal. And so I did say something to her. I'm like, you know, ma'am, I have money to purchase whatever I want in this store, so I don't need you following me as if I'm gonna steal something. So I that was surprising, you know. But she was a Italian or some descent. She wasn't all the way white, but yeah. So I got that.
Everybody be having little prejudices or their, how they think or feel about people. You know, people think one way about black people as a whole. Like, I feel like and I can't really speak for everybody, so don't take this as me speaking for everybody. But in Devin's little mind, everybody look at black people some type of way, whether it's, this or that. And, but I think I think it plays a part, because people got biased opinions no matter what, and whether they true or not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't be based off of the complexion of your skin.
Colorism is extremely dangerous to the well-being of all people. Dividing ourselves based on the color of our skin not only weakens us, but turns us against each other and interrupts the unity needed for liberation. But where did colorism come from anyway? Lies about our skin tone started during enslavement. When white slave owners sexually assaulted black women, their lighter skinned offspring were often treated better or given special privileges because they were the family of white people. But that's not all. Separation of African American people continued after enslavement. Lighter-skinned people had more opportunities to work, which meant they would build wealth. Light skin became associated with being well off, and whiteness was the standard of power and beauty, while darker skin was linked to unemployment and poverty. African American people were forced to survive like this. Sometimes light-skinned people excluded their dark-skinned kin in order to avoid white violence. Colorism was put into place by racists to keep their economic and social power and to disenfranchise African Americans from the full American citizenship. So how can we move past this problem? We have to keep exposing the fact that colorism was created to keep us infighting, unable to organize in unity against white supremacy. We must reject it And remember that we can build our community the strongest when we work together and fight against anything that would divide us as an African American community, as a multicultural community, and ultimately as God's children. Colorism. This is destroying our community, but we can overcome it.
It's a battle like anything else. We fighting, you know.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love being a Black woman. Black is beautiful. There's so many shades of us, and we're just outstanding women. And no one should ever take us for granted. We're smart, we're beautiful. In all our shades, regardless of what color we are. So.